I have not yelled at my screen this much in a long time. I was screaming. I was fuming. Damn it, Kudou. Yeah, the moment that Kudou mentioned that he didn't know about that shelter, I was like, yeah, there's that confirmation there. This is all Kudou's creation. Yeah, we had that whole thing where he like woke up in a panic and things started shaking. There's a sense here that whenever Kudou gets uneasy, things shift. The world itself like is collapsing or shaking or whatever. But that was a confirmation. Like, there you go. Kudou, this is his creation. That makes sense. But then Gwen had to bring up Xiaohei, and I was like, no, we're not doing this. He mentioned that it's a boy, and I'm like, okay, maybe it might be a thing where they don't know that it's actually a girl, or Gwen thinks it's a boy, but it's actually a girl. Maybe Kudou was one that's right. But no, the moment that like confirmation happened, and Kudou's like, oh, is that right? I was like, oh, no. No! I was like that right there. I'm like, ah, damn it. She's gone. She's gone. She's totally gone. Oh, I was so freaking mad, dude. I was so mad. But my gosh, dude. Episode 11. Incredible episode. Just incredible episode. Like, all these massive reveals, all these confirmations, and all these massive twists. Like, this is, like, easily probably the best episode of the series so far. And it delivered. It delivered on so many counts. Now, the frustrating thing is, of course, the ending. That Yaomei walks out of there. She no longer has regrets, which we've confirmed this episode. It is regrets. It is regrets what draws them there. I almost wanted to give a sense that Yaomei is not really regrets, but more so a hang-up. She has a hang-up. Not necessarily that she came there, because when she arrived there, she was trying to get away from her mother. She had the plastic surgery and she was getting away from her mother. So I didn't really feel that it was a regret thing. But I guess it could be an idea that, yes, after she got the plastic surgery, her regret was not going back and just talking to mom. Because I think in the end for Yaomei, I think her mom's going to be a chill person. I think it's not so much that her mother is a controlling person. I just think that, well, her mother is a controlling person, but I think from Yaomei's perspective, she felt that she couldn't speak. And I think her mother was just trying to do what she thought was best for her daughter. And Yaomei went along with it because she just seen her mother as sort of this perfect person that knows everything. I can't say no. Every time I choose something, she says something different. I think if she were to speak up and say, no, mom, I want this, she'll go, okay, if that's what you want. I think there's a feeling that I have that she's going to go to mom and mom's going to be like, oh, I didn't know that's how you felt. I think it's going to be one of those moments where it's not necessarily that they're horrible people or unreasonable. I guess the best way to put it, she's not unreasonable. It's just that Yaomei never spoke up and she never felt that she could. But anyways, I didn't think it was going to be a regret thing. I just thought it was going to be sort of a hang-up. I hate that this is how it was, and I was trying to get away from it. But I think that Yaomei, in the end, is still going to be able to go back. I think that whole ending segment of them walking out, I think they're going to probably be able to return Xiaohei and Yaomei. But I think it's going to be a thing where they're going to have to do similar to what Yulong did. They're going to have to create another regret. They're going to have to think of something, because that's the only reason that Yulong's there. Yulong wasn't able to go there immediately. It was until he actually thought about a regret, and then suddenly he's able to go in there. Yaomei can simply think about, I regret not being able to talk to Kujdai again. Boom, it appears. I think it's going to be as simple as that. But we'll see. I think the biggest question mark really that I have after this episode, we're just going to get through the entire episode, so stay tuned. I think the biggest question mark that I have at the very end of this episode is how this is going to diverge from the actual manga. Because for those who don't know, the manga right now, at least what the English translation is, it's like in the middle of this episode. So I don't have any idea what happens after this. I will say, though, there's a significant difference in the manga than in the anime so far what's been translated. And that's really around how they handle the reveal about Kudou controlling the world itself. In the anime, it's specifically the shelter, it's created. Oh, Xiaohei, deleted. With the actual manga, Gwen thinks about how there's two Xiaohei, but he doesn't tell Kudou. So it could still happen in the manga, just later on. The two Xiaoheis maybe walk in front of Kudou and suddenly he realizes it and boom, one of them disappears. But so far in the manga, they've revealed that Kudou controls the world, but they didn't delete Xiaohei, which makes me wonder how we lead to Xiaohei and Yaomei leaving, which again, could all happen just in a different way. And it seems odd how it's played out. It did have a really cool way of revealing it, though, and we'll get into that when we get into that part. But let's just do this. Let's get in the episode proper, and we'll get into each points as we go along. Oh, yeah, opening up the episode with Yulong himself discovering the aspect about the regrets. Yes, it opens up with essentially him, trying to figure out, is it something of an attachment or something like that. Eventually, he goes to leave to go to Kowloon. But before he leaves, of course, he drops by the doctor himself. And in the manga specifically, he does end up asking him about Miyuki's connection to Kowloon. And I think what Yulong's trying to figure out here, is it an attachment? Did he really like Kowloon? And And the doctor says, yeah, I think he did have, he liked Kowloon. I guess so, yeah. But he says, but even what happened to his mother, his feelings of regret are likely even stronger, precisely because he loved it. I think there's like right there where suddenly the doctor is already hinting to Yulong that it's a regret thing. That yes, Miyuki has more regret than love. Yulong doesn't really catch it there. It isn't until Yulong goes to the ruins that he figures it out. But yeah, that's where we get that little flashback of Yulong talking to Miyuki. Miyuki, again, essentially being brought into the family, the Hebinuma family, all the stuff that he had to do there, cutting his tongue and everything like that, eventually leading into getting into the fact that, yes, he was trying to get treatment for his mother, which I would assume that Hebinuma was promising him some sort of treatment to help his mother. It might have been the generic Terra project. That could have been possibly what it is, because that's supposed to be about accidents and illnesses to sort to, back up your memories and whatnot. But yes, this all leads into the mother dying, apparently, as Miyuki was gone, and thus he has these massive regrets, and he wants to get revenge to his father, his new father, his adoptive father, the Hebinuma father. But interesting that right here, we then cut back to Yulong, and he's before the ruins, and he says that was the first time was during the Flames of Anger. The second time was from the hometown that no longer exists. I'm curious what exactly he's talking about here. My assumption is the desire to see Kowloon first happened when he had those Flames of Anger back there about the death of the mother, and then the second time the desire to see Kowloon is standing right before it. But it's through that whole, again, desire to see Kowloon, and through this whole massive regret that he has with Miyuki and everything, that suddenly it appears and he realizes, yes, confirmation in this episode, it is regrets that brings people to Kowloon. Which, yes, at that point, I'm like, what is Yulong going to do? There's like this whole talk. There is a discussion between Gwyn and Yaomei where they talk about the talismans. I think Yulong's going to run through there and tear all those things and start ripping the place up, whatever those talismans do. Which, yes, we get into talking about Yaomei and Gwyn talking about, yes, her finally remembering everything, apologizing for not paying. This is really interesting. The whole eating thing is really interesting because there is another skip segment in the manga that does get into, once again, eating, specifically. Eating and drinking. Consuming things in Kowloon. I am very curious if eventually we will kind of get into this because it's not really explained that well so far. But with how much it's coming up, I think eventually they will get into it. What we experienced so far is Yaomei herself, when she came back to Kowloon, the moment that she started consuming things or drank something there, suddenly she forgot the anomalies. The anomalies that were sort of picking at her. The fact that it's always summer, and right here confirming that the aspect that she has fake money and has to pay back Gwyn. I think she didn't have a problem with paying back Gwyn before because she figured, oh, I make money here, I'll just pay him back. But now that she remembers the oddity about how her money doesn't exist, suddenly she has to apologize that she can't pay him back. So I think it's going to be things that are specifically things that pull you out of the illusion is really what it's going to be. That's where my assumption goes. Because later on, again, the skip segment, Kudou is talking to one of the old guys that they play mahjong with, and Gwyn is like questioning, you guys actually eat the stuff here. And both this old man and Kudou are self-aware of the duplicates, the fact that when the original comes in, they get deleted. They're talking about all these oddities about this place, but specifically when they talk about eating and drinking, they don't mind it. So it seems like the duplicates and the erasing of the duplicates isn't an oddity that the food itself erases. So far, all we've confirmed is Yaomei's questioning why it's always summer and the idea of the money itself being fake. Now, if we take out the money aspect, it could be specifically things that will question it being connected to Kudou. The idea that it's always summer could basically things that could zero you in on who is the core, is what my guess would be. We know that Kudou's the core now. Could it be specifically that it's always summer at this time because it's the time that Kujdai and Kudou were together, and thus knowing that it's always summer, you'll know that it has something to do with this time frame and what happened at the end of this time frame, which is Kujdai's death? I think that might actually be it. Maybe the food itself is sort of forcing you not to think about the oddities that will pinpoint you to the core, which is Kudou and Kujdai. The other thing that Gwyn and Yaomei talk about specifically is the whole cover-up. Which, yes, we get an idea that Yulong told her through that little chat, don't know about the cover-up, but there seems to be some talismans everywhere. And the clue as to what they're covering up is hidden in those talismans. Which Gwyn responds by saying, I knew about the talismans, but I didn't know about the tie-in with that. The talismans are dangerous. Stay away from them. Which we know from Kujdai opening up all the talismans, they're just kind of error codes. And of course, we have the message as well. It says, stop, stop looking into this, which does make me believe that, again, this is some sort of communication happening from the generic Terra. The gene Terra is up there, and this is sort of response code from it trying to tell her to stop, which could get into my theory and the idea that Kujidai herself is in the generic Terra, and maybe she's the only mind that so far has been uploaded to it, and she's communicating and telling her to stop. That this thing has been created for you to stop messing with it. I'd be curious to know what Gwyn knows about it. Gwyn doesn't seem like he's that much in the know. How would he know about the Talismans? That's the oddity. The Talismans seem to be sort of a threat, like something you don't want to touch. You know it's important, but you don't touch it. It is that Band-Aid. You don't want to lift up that Band-Aid to find out how bad it is. Like you got that cut, somebody covered up with a Band-Aid, you don't want to open up because you don't want to know how deep that wound is. You don't know if it's going to fester or something. I don't know, it seems odd. And yes, the last thing that she brings up is the summer. It never ends. It never moves on. Which I think that sort of is a little bit of a tilt there to the idea of how much Kudou and his connection with Kujidai is for this whole situation. And the idea that, again, Kujidai didn't want to move on. She wanted to stay in one place. Thus making me believe, to my bigger theory, that I think that there's a misdirection here. I really do think there's a misdirection here in the idea that we were supposed to be led to believe that it's Kudou because he is manipulating the world. Again, the pain with the earthquakes, Kudou creating the shelter, and the idea of the correction on Xiaohei and the deletion of Xiaohei. But I think there's probably going to be a bigger thing here, which I think it might be more so Kujidai is through proxy to Kudou creating the place. It's not necessarily just Kudou in the center. Anyway, we cut from there. They both separate each other. Gwen gets a call from Kudou, which that whole thing sucks there. We'll get into it in a minute. Over here we have Yaomei, and she's conflicted about the idea that she wants to tell Kujidai everything that's going on, and she is accepting from Gwen this idea of essentially moving on. The idea that it's nice that you care for other people and you want to spend time with Kujidai B, you want to help out Kujidai B, but you are real. I am real. Kudou is real. Miyuki's real. We can't stay here. We have to get out of here. What's important is your own life. I think this sort of is a bigger message in the story of the idea of moving on, with the idea that the entire place is basically a therapist office. Kowloon is a therapist office, and Kujidai is the therapist. At its core, I think this whole concept here is the idea of regrets and how people are stuck in those regrets. Kowloon is where you're stuck in regrets, and it's time to move on. He's telling Yaomei here, don't be stuck in that regrets. You're a real person with a future. Get out of Kowloon and move on with your life. Go back to your mother. Be happy. And that's what sort of happened at the end of this episode, is Yaomei accepting she wants to move on with her life, go back to her mother, get rid of that regret, get out of Kowloon. And then Xiaohei's over here, where I was always stuck on the idea of wanting these frills and being smaller and everything. Now I've accepted a new me where I can be freely, even if I'm tall. I like the new me. I'm in love with the new me. Boom. Kowloon's gone. Finally left Kowloon. How that's going to work out for everybody else, my biggest question is going to be Gwen. I think Gwen's the only one that is like a massive question mark as to what's holding him down. Miyuki, it makes sense. Again, revenge, everything that happened with the father, losing mother, all that kind of stuff. Again, Kujidai, if she's actually a real person, possibly memories in the generic Terra, it could be the aspect of just wanting to stay in Kowloon. She never wanted to leave Kowloon. The regrets of losing Kowloon. With Kudou, it's Kujidai. Not wanting to leave Kujidai. Always being with Kujidai. And yes, her dying. We had briefly a moment where Kujidai was able to see Kujidai B taking the actual slips, the talismans, and taking them to a location, dropping them in a letterbox, and then getting pills from it. And the pills specifically had like a death symbol, if I remember correctly, a Roman numeral 1 or an I, and an infinity. I don't know that we've really had anything so far that's like specifically for those. Again, I think that her room number was 8, ? And so that could be a tie-in with that. That kind of would be a little bit of a stretch there. I think it's supposed to be infinity, though. I think that's supposed to be an infinity symbol. Because I think on the card in the back, it was sideways. But again, I think a lot of that stuff is specifically having to do with Hebinuma, which again implies this idea of bringing these talisman to this drop box is something to do with Hebinuma wanting the talismans, or maybe some sort of message or error code that it has. It seems really weird. Here's where we had a bit of a skip segment. We cut over to Xiaohei, and again, he's thinking about the whole aspect of killing Reiko and becoming an old self. In the whole conversation with Yulong, it does explain why Yulong knows about the other Xiaohei, and the fact that the other Xiaohei is there. And yes, that goes back to like episode 3 or something like that, that Miyuki, when he first came into Kowloon, he created a clinic. And after he created a clinic, it was this whole method in order to see about the population, what's going on with everybody. It was a way of drawing the citizens, the copies and whatnot of Kowloon in there so that he can get an idea about the citizens, who's actually there, how many are copies and whatnot. And that's how they discovered, going based off of this new Xiaohei and when he started investigating the place, the dates, comparing it to when, yes, the other Xiaohei of 3 years ago went to visit that clinic. So he's able to find out that there was 2 different ones there and that it's not gone yet. But yes, Yulong offers him to essentially go back to his old self, which it's a little more better explained in the manga in the idea that he's specifically saying we're not going to create a clone of you, birth this clone, make a test tube baby, clone you, and then let it grow into maturity and then put your mind into it. Because I think that whole point there is that if we create a clone and insert you into it, it's going to, 3 years later, you're back to where you were before. He's specifically saying, we will give you a Zirconian. We're trying to currently figure out Zirconians so that we can create them. And once we figure that out, we will give you one. We will make you a body just like 3 years ago, and we'll put you into that body, and it's going to be what you want. And the assumption there is that it's never going to grow old. But yeah, as Xiaohei is struggling over this, Kudou shows up. That was kind of creepy little face there. I think there was a brief moment of kind of seeing something and going, I can have it. I think there is that sad reality there of Xiaohei honestly struggling over it. I want this so bad. I want to be this old self so bad. I loved fitting in those outfits, those cute frilly outfits. Even that brief moment before now with the manga, he's watching the other Xiaohei through binoculars and saying, oh, that's the dress that I loved so much. I remember when I wore that dress. I want it so bad. And then boom, right here, Kujai's right in front of him. And there's like a brief moment of all I got to do is just stab something right in the neck and I can have it. I think he had a temporary panic moment. A panic moment of, would I do that? I don't know. It might be reading too much into it, but it had like a very delirious face there. But yes, that's when the other Xiaohei calls. They go over there to check the fire alarm. I love the whole scene with them there. And that's what sucks so much about it because, again, he goes and fixes the alarm. Xiaohei's so happy. And specifically, Xiaohei says, that's so amazing. Thank you so much. I'm not tall enough to reach that. I couldn't do it myself. I'm so grateful of you. I almost felt like they could have emphasized that a bit more, but it almost felt like there was an emphasis there in because you're taller, you can do things I can't. So there's a benefit in being taller. The smaller Xiaohei is basically saying, I wish I can be as tall as you. But no, Xiaohei looking around and seeing all the outfits and then just getting super emotional. It was so bad. It's so hurt. It's so hurt. And then yes, coming to that realization point there for Xiaohei. I'm crying. I don't understand myself, but looking at this stuff in the past used to be very painful. But now I'm so happy. That outfit looks super cute. Your outfit looks super cute. And she's so happy. Yeah, it was like this brief moment of, again, I think a realization for him that he can still enjoy this stuff. I think that's really what it is, enjoying this stuff. I don't have to be that small self. And I think that really is proof at the very end, and I think that's why he's able to kind of leave it behind, isn't that the life is always about losing things. Even with them gone, you can still carry it on the feelings with you. It's a moving on from that. Continue to love things in its new form. And that's why he's able to have the frillies. He's accepting it in the new form. And that's why it's able to stay there. The other stuff can't go with him because that's still the regrets. The regrets can't leave with you, basically, is really what it's going with that. Anyways, as they're standing there, we'll talk about what happens after that. We cut over to Kudou, Gwen, and specifically the manga, they're talking to Chao, which Chao, again, is one of the guys that they do mahjong with. But yes, there's that conversation about what does, Kudou actually know, about the existence of multiple people, how the, copies in Kowloon disappear. How they tell it in the manga is very interesting because, again, they are talking to one of the mahjong players, Chao. And this is sort of everybody kind of confirming that we're aware of the fact that when an original comes into Kowloon, the copy disappears. Why Kudou knows is because he's seen Chao come in. Why Chao knows is because he's seen Mr. Chan disappear. And he assumes that Mr. Chan came in there. Now, curiously, they sort of note that Mr. Chan hasn't shown up yet. Again, this is a guy that entered Kowloon to test this whole theory, but they haven't seen Mr. Chan. So they're not sure if maybe he possibly just left immediately once he arrived. It's an oddity because they're specifically saying they don't have enough people to do mahjong now. So they haven't seen Mr. Chan. So I'm not sure if he'll come up later. But anyways, this is a confirmation again there that they're all aware of this and they don't see it as an oddity, but they're not bothered by it. And they all know that Kowloon is demolished. They're aware of all this stuff. They know this is an illusion. And that's when it gets into talking about eating the foods and whatnot and how they're not seemingly bothered by eating the food. Kudou specifically says, look, dude, if you don't want to eat the stuff, don't eat the stuff. But if you want to, eat it. It's not that big of a deal. You probably think we're crazy, but it's just what it is. They sit down, have some beers. Gwen, once again, feeling that the beer is real, but never seems to consume it. And here's a really cool way, again, they did do the reveal about how Kudou is altering things in the manga, where Gwen brings up the fact that on the television, he's seen that they cloned a cat, and the owner was happy. And Gwen specifically doesn't understand it. Again, this is ongoing discussion in this, or theme in this entire series, about the idea of somebody wanting to be around something that is not real, that they know is not real. Again, Kudou living alongside a copy of Kujirai, who is his loved one that is supposed to be dead. Gwen doesn't understand it. And he's talking about the cat and how this owner's happy that this cat's been cloned and it's acting the same way that the original dead cat was. He doesn't understand it. And this is where Chow brings up a photo of his wife. And this is from a long time ago when they used to run this steam cleaning place. And he's talking about his wife, you know, this beautiful, they were so happy together. It was a lot of work and everything. They had one extra employee that came in and helped them out. And at some point, unfortunately, out of nowhere, very abruptly, his wife stepped on this damaged floor and it caved in. She fell through the floor. She hit an object in the wrong place, died. And this has been a massive regret for him to this day. Now, here's the reveal. Kudou asks, where was the shop? And the old man says, it's right there. It's right behind you. And very briefly, the perspective is towards Kudou. The shop is behind him with the wife, all still standing. And then he turns and it's all ruins. A very brief moment that it existed, and then it didn't exist. And it seems like Gwen's seen her. It seems like Gwen's seen it. And it does seem like Chow did too, because Chow starts breaking down in tears and says, Gwen, no one else can know another person's pain or joy, only the person who experienced it. Gut punch. And again, right here, Gwen is realizing that shop wasn't there before. He didn't know where it was. Then suddenly, when Chow said where it was, the shop appeared. And then at that point, Gwen says, hey, do you know that I made this shelter next to the old bar? And then he leaves and goes to the bar and the shelter's there. This is where Gwen realizes in the manga, yeah, this is his world. It's his creation. It's based on his memories. And so again, no mention of Xiaohei and Xiaohei's gender. So it does make me wonder that either one, this is an alteration from the source material to the manga, that they might be changing things around for the anime's ending, which some people have speculated the manga, anime, and light novel might have different endings. I haven't seen a confirmation of that. They are wrapping up the manga, and it should end this year. We are getting very close to being very neck and neck with what the manga is. In the end, the mangaka knows how it's going to end, and they will tell them how it ends. So the manga not being done and drawn doesn't mean that they don't know how the show is going to end. I get frustrated when people think that the mangaka doesn't know where their story's going when it's, you know, near ending adaptations side by side. If they don't know how the manga is ending by now, they're a horrible writer. This mangaka probably knew how this is going to end 2 years ago at this point, at least. So it's not proof that the anime has to be different ending, but they could do something sort of as a, you know, multimedia project to get people to watch each one of them, is to have slightly altering endings. I think there was a sense here they were going to have sort of diverging ways of telling the story, but they all come together in the end. And the idea of, again, Xiaohei disappearing or not could be a diversion there. That they're still going to come to the same conclusion. It's just that's going to have little reasons to kind of make you want to watch one or the other or read the other. It was an interesting little kind of change they did there that I thought was super cool. But anyways, in the anime, Gwen mentioned the fact that, you know, the gender of Xiaohei. Oh, I didn't know that. Diddle-late. We come back over to Kujirai, Yaomei, and Xiaohei. Only one Xiaohei. Oh, gut punch. She was about to hand over the tissues, too. She was about to hand over the tissues, and boop, gone. Boop, gone. It was funny, though, that the reason that Kudou didn't know is because everybody thought it was funny that he didn't know, so they never told him. That was kind of funny. It's like, we did it as a joke. We thought it was funny. So everybody just kept it a secret. I would assume that Xiaohei was in on it or something. Anyways, this is where we get really into Xiaohei's character and everything that's going on. Says he didn't find Xiaohei, did you? It makes sense. Everything is Kudou's creation. And that would explain the whole thing that he was talking about Gwen with. Oh, you didn't figure it out? You don't know why? I think he knew. He knew that the only reason is because Kudou didn't know about the gender itself. It's not creating some sort of inconsistency. But yeah, specifically that it's created from a few years ago, which makes sense because that's when the demolishing happened. So it's going to be Xiaohei from 3 years ago. He says it only replicates as he remembers. He talks about the whole replicas. It's set up to where if one enters where there's a duplicate, the duplicate is erased. It only worked for Xiaohei because he thought it was a girl. And then mentions, I only came here for 2 reasons: to investigate Kowloon and to kill Kujai. I'm kind of shocked that he's able to come forward with that. They ask why he's supposed to kill him, and he says, in order to have a vessel, I had a vessel here, but unfortunately it's gone, so there's no point to it anymore. I think it kind of confirms right here the idea was to use the Xiaohei of this Kowloon to figure out how to pull it out of Kowloon and then implant his mind into it, which would technically explain sort of a double side effect to being asked to kill Kujai, is that conflict. Do I want to have my brain essentially implanted into Xiaohei where her mind is erased? There's a possibility that when he met Xiaohei here, he might have realized at that point, I don't want to erase this girl. But yes, my wish will never come true. And after meeting you two, I think it's pretty much that point, realizing that I can't do this. Specifically, I've come to realize I don't need to cling to the generic version of this world. Again, there's that regret gone. That would be the point right there where when Xiaohei leaves, Kowloon's disappearing. It ain't gonna be here when you come back. He's basically gotten rid of that regret. I no longer need to be this other Xiaohei. I've learned to kind of accept who I am now, and I can still be what I want to be. I can wear this frilly stuff under this vest, and it's just the same. Again, the break of regrets. Anyways, he knows that Hebinuma is gonna come after him. He knows too much. He goes to leave, and that's when Yaomei decides to go with him. That my mother's really powerful. She'll be able to protect us and all that kind of stuff. And again, I think right here, we're already getting a sense that Yaomei herself is moving on. I think because of her discussion with Gwen, realizing that she wants to go back and get rid of that regrets, it's both of them at this point not realizing it. They've had their therapy. They've had their therapy as they walk out that door, as we see, out of Kowloon, it disappears. They both had that regret is gone. Now, again, I do think that Yaomei is going to be able to come back. I don't know that Xiaohei would be able to come back. I think Xiaohei is going to do whatever we want to do. I think Yaomei will probably go back to her mother, set up Xiaohei with her mother, and then at that point have that, conclusion with her mother. And I think she'll be able to come back to Kowloon, but I think it's specifically going to be through the desire to see Kujai again. But yeah, the moment they were walking out there and the clothes are disappearing, again, the clothes were a signification of regrets. Yeah, I knew that they couldn't come with me. I knew that they were something of past, and I don't mind so much anymore because it's of the past. I realize that, I don't have to be stuck on that. I can accept things as they are now. And that's why the dress disappears, which are smaller size. I can't wear these. These are my regrets. I can't wear these, thus they're going to disappear. But this stays with me because this is my new self, which I think that's very telling. What he says at the end there is really where I think the story's end is. What is the massive regret for Kudou? Is some sort of connection with Kujai. But the problem is that the Kujai that's in this world is not the Kujai that he knows. Xiaohei says, it's okay, you taught me that we can continue to love something in a new form. That was a very telling statement. That tells me right there the ending of this story could be, and it's sort of what I kind of expected it to be. For a while now, I don't remember exactly where it was at, this idea that I think this whole concept here is Kudou accepting this other Kujai. That's how the ending could be, is in the end, Kudou has to accept this Kujai and stop thinking about that Kujai. Because he's always thinking about that Kujai, and that's where he breaks off from her. That's where it always has like almost a reset for him. Their relationship just breaks the moment that he remembers something about Kujai B. That whole thing with the French toast. She doesn't know about the sugar thing. I'm out of here. Peace out. I'm out. It's like, stop thinking about her. Thinking about the one in front of you. And I think that's what it'll be. He has to accept Kujai, this Kujai, and then they'll be able to walk out of there together. Until then, she cannot leave. She can't. He's not accepting it. At the same time, I do kind of hope this story doesn't do that. There's a side of me that doesn't kind of want that to happen, because my overall theory still kind of stands that I think that Kujai, why she's so different, because even Xiaohei points out at the very end, you're not that Kujai B. Everybody else here is replicas of what Kudou thinks that they should be until the original comes in and deletes it. But Kujai, you're different. You're not the same one. Doesn't know why. And I think that's really because I think this Kujai may be one that was uploaded to the generic Terra before Kudou and her met. I think she might be uploaded there. And it could be an aspect that she may think that she was dying, and thus she had herself uploaded to the generic Terra. And then after she dies in Kowloon, Kudou, then desiring to see her again, caused this anomaly in where the ruins were. I think what it really comes down to is possibly she was taking the medicine from Hebinuma. It had massive side effects. It killed her. Then they decided to demolish Kowloon to get rid of the evidence. And then Kudou, coming back in despair, goes in the middle of the ruins, and through this, again, yin-yang feng shui thing that happened underneath the generic Terra, it pulled her memories that she stored 3 years ago before they even met, pulled them into this area, and it created this illusion of this world, all spewed and created by regrets itself. That's sort of where I'm thinking everything is kind of going. But I kind of want the ending not to be an idea of Kudou accepting Kujai and then suddenly she just manifests and is created and they're able to walk out and be happy together. I almost want to have more of a bittersweet ending, where the idea that Kujai, while I do want her to be happy in the end, she's still, again, dead, and these are her memories. I think it would be better served to have it be more of, again, sort of similar to what Yaomei does, Xiaohei does, is an acceptance of how life is now, becoming that absolute self that doesn't require something to be created for you, that you create yourself. And Kudou will accept the idea that this is a dead Kujai and just her memories, and just walks out of Kowloon. And then the ending could be left the idea of just sort of accepting that Kowloon's always there, waiting for those with regrets to stumble upon it. Everybody goes on with their lives in the outside world, but Kowloon always remains here. And there's like this story. Did you hear about the Kowloon that people stumble upon? Yeah, apparently it's people have massive regrets, and it helps with the regrets. They'll meet Kujai there, and Kujai will help them with regrets. I think it could be a cool way of kind of wrapping up the story and leaving it as sort of an open-ended ending. But we'll see. We'll see. Again, I'm kind of completely up in the air at this point because I don't have a manga to kind of cross-reference anymore. I can't read on and see the ending of the story, which is kind of exciting at the same time. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed my rambling about Kowloon generic romance. As always, if you did, hit the like button down below, comment, let me know the episode. Additionally, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel before you leave. Like this content, you want to support more, I have links to the script below. Greatly appreciate it. Until next time, y'all take care.